I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the town of Saugeen Shores, and I'll extend a welcome to everyone in the chambers this evening. And the first order of business is a declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll remind every member of your responsibility to do so. None noted. Then this evening we have 3 deputations, and the first is Jill Root from our Business Enterprise Center, and she's here to update us on the programs. Welcome, Jill.
There we go. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Smith and councillors, for having me tonight. So, yes, this is Jill Root, manager of the Business Enterprise Center. And the reason I'm here tonight, I actually have 3 goals tonight. One is to introduce the Business Enterprise Center programs and services to the new councillors. And I'm going to do that in a format that's sort of a year in review, since there are also returning councillors, so you already know what we do. And then lastly, I'm going to invite you to be involved in the Business Enterprise Center. So the Business Enterprise Center, our primary goal is to support entrepreneurship. And we do that through supporting small businesses. And the main focus is that the more assistance and help we can give our small businesses, then the more successful they'll become. And we do that through all stages of business development, through the thinking stage, the starting stage, growing, and then, of course, exiting. The Small Business Enterprise Center is part of Ontario's network of entrepreneurs. Our funding partners are the Ontario Ministry of Economic Development, Employment and Infrastructure, and the Ministry of Research and Innovation, the town of Saugeen Shores, of course, and the county of Bruce. Our team. So myself, I'm the manager, and I'm responsible for business advice, consultations, and the overall office function. I liaise with our partners, the ministry, Saugeen Shores, and Bruce County. And I oversee the implementation of our core program business plan, our youth programs, and other initiatives and outreach that our office takes on. I'm also play a role in the physician recruitment program. Patrick in our office, our business development coordinator. Patrick is kind of our office administrator, behind the scenes guy, taking care of our IT, our client relationship management system, and our events. Patrick also handles market research for clients and for local initiatives. And then Caitlin is our youth programs coordinator, fairly new with the team. And so she handles all of our youth programs, which I'll explain in the next couple of slides. Caitlin also handles our social media marketing and marketing for the office. So how do we help? So the primary function of what we do is through one-on-one business advice consultations. And those sort of take on different forms. It's very client-focused, so wherever that particular person needs help. So it could be in the beginning stages. It could be later on as the business progresses. It really depends on where that person is. So just for some examples, someone comes in the office and they maybe have a dream of being self-employed one day, but they really have to look back at themselves, their characteristics, their personality, and just kind of take a moment to see, do I have that entrepreneurial gift? Or maybe you're in the stage of you've got an idea, you need some help on discovering whether or not that's a feasible idea. Or maybe it's to go over rules and regulations, business planning, maybe you're hiring someone for the first time, those kinds of topics. Other services that we provide, sort of a referral and information source. So we like to kind of be that first step that people come to when they have questions. And so we might research, we might refer them on to a different agency. We're also connected with Service Ontario and Canada Business Ontario, which are 2 web portals that have a wealth of information for those people who are in business. We do educational programs, and we also have a business resource library. Now, the Business Enterprise Center has actually been in operation for 15 years. And so through those 15 years, the resource library has really changed. More information, of course, is on the internet, and we've become fairly paperless in the office. So now our library, which we still have in place, we still have a public computer for people to use and register their businesses and so on. But we've really used this space as more of an educational educational forum. We've kind of reworked it so that we've got a monitor on the wall, and we do in-house workshops. So I'll go through some of the workshops that we've done this previous year. We always do an e-business focus. This year we held 2 3-hour workshops. One was on e-commerce and one was on developing a social media strategy. We have a series of workshops on Wednesday mornings in Port Elgin. And so those are 1 hour to 1.5 hours, and they're really focused on one specific topic. We're doing Maximizing Mondays in Walkerton now. And so some of those things that we do are listed here. So we do Facebook advertising, how to plan posts on your social media, how to acquire content to put on your social media sites, and we did a workshop on how to open an online store. We also do general topics around in education. So we did a business transition workshop. We did 2 Marketing 101 clinics this year. And we're doing merchandising clinics. We just had one last week specifically on retail. This week coming up is on service. And that, again, is part of our workshop Wednesdays. We do a number of projects with the Saugeen Shores Chamber because, of course, we're housed in the same building. And this year we did a compliance workshop. We held a mayor's breakfast together, and we're involved in the Business After Hours program, which is the 3rd Thursday of every month. This year we're also very important part of the Brass Awards coming up. Hopefully you're all aware of the Brass Awards. That's the Business Recognition Awards in Saugeen Shores program. Nominations are now open, so I'll just put a plug in that nominate your local business. The deadline is April 7th, and our award program that I hope you'll all attend is May 30th at the Saugeen Golf Club. Each year we do a program called Bridges to Better Business, and this is a provincial model. It happens all over the province. And this year we were fortunate enough to partner with the Spruce the Bruce program to bring Roger Brooks to the community. We had over 60 people attend. That was the week of the snowstorm in November. So prior to that, we did have to postpone it one night. Prior to that little kerfluffle, we had 80 people registered. So it was a great event. For those of you that were there, you'll attest to that, maybe. Dang it. We also do an event each year during the week of the International Day of Women. This year we did an event a couple weeks ago in Walkerton called Grow Your Network, Grow Your Business with Nikki Pett. Nikki is an amazing person who has a book called Relationship ROI, and this program is really about the importance of relationships, especially in this world of technology, and building on those relationships to really build your network and build your business. Great event, so that we do. So another thing that we do is outreach, and we do this because we want to get the word out. You know, all the time people are still coming into the office or reaching out to us saying, gee, I never knew you existed. And so we want to really try to change that. And get as many people in the county to understand that the services that we provide are available to them. So we do a number of outreach activities, including council deputations, our educational programs throughout the county. We just go downtown to do downtown blitzes, our social media, our e-blasts, and community involvement. We also have a lot of programs around youth, really trying to encourage our youth to become job creators. And, you know, they spend a lot of time in school talking about developing a career for themselves. And there's not a lot of time to talk about, you know, how do I start a business? How do I become a job creator in the future? So we have some programs that we do. One is called Make Your Pitch. It is a provincial program. This program is geared to high school kids, students. And this is where they develop a very quick 2-minute video that basically describes a business, what solution they're solving, who their target market is, etc. And this year we're doing a program called Prove Your Plan. We did a proposal to the province to do a high school entrepreneurship outreach program, and our proposal was accepted. The program is called Prove Your Plan. We're working with Junior Achievement, which we now have in Grey Bruce. This is very new for us. We didn't used to have one, so this is fantastic. They're already in schools grades 7 and 8, and we're working together for this high school program, which essentially is a business planning competition. We also have the Summer Company program, and hopefully you're aware of this program as well. It's been running for a number of years. The Summer Company program is for high school students, college or university, so 15 to 29, and it gives them the opportunity to start up and run their own summer business. Great, fabulous program. Even if there's an enterprising student in your life that may not want to be self-employed one day, it's a great opportunity for kids to really grow in so many ways. One is being able to manage their time. Another is being able to manage their money. And also just to really communicate with people. We find in today's world we're so sort of obsessed and confined to our electronics, but there's still a really important value in being able to sell yourself and talk to a stranger and so on. So fabulous program. And then new this year, the Starter Company program was just launched in May. Starter Company is for youth who are not in school. So they're aged 18 to 29. And the government gives them up to $5,000 to start up or run their existing business. It comes with mentoring, training, and this is another fabulous program. So far, we have 3 recipients. This picture here is of our two from Kincardine, Cassie and Phil. They were awarded their $5,000 grant in December. They run a pick studio. They provide music lessons, primarily for students, and they're doing really well. We also are now a community partner with Futurepreneur Canada. Futurepreneur Canada is the new name for the Canada Youth Business Foundation, CYBF, if you're familiar with that program. So that gives youth up to 35 years old the opportunity for loans up to $45,000, mentoring, coaching, and business training. We also have a strong First Nations outreach program. In fact, tomorrow we're doing a youth-focused educational workshop tomorrow morning for our Aboriginal youth. We do information sessions about our youth programs or just about Aboriginal business support programs in general. And we are working alongside Jody McDonald at the high school for the Aboriginal Youth Entrepreneurship Program. So what's the impact of what we do? So far this year, as of today, we've had 218 business advice consultations. And we do measure those consultations. So once we've met with folks, we follow up with them in 3 to 6 months to see how they're doing. Did they actually start? Did they actually grow? Have they hired an employee? And from those statistics, we can measure and say that we've helped to start 25 businesses and created 49 jobs. We've held 16 educational workshops. 2 of those are those major events, Bridges and International Day of Women. We've been involved in 5 job fairs, 2 Aboriginal information sessions, and then the program I mentioned that we're having tomorrow morning for Aboriginal youth. And we've attended or been involved in about 50 outreach activities. 16 of those are focused on youth. The impact on youth, so I'll give you some statistics for our Starter Company program. We've had 33 young people apply to the program. 14 have been admitted into the program. 3 have received funding. We've conducted 51 hours of training and have conducted 16 mentor meetings. This year so far, Summer Company is just opening for this year, but so far we're working with 4 students on Summer Company business plans. We're working with 6 area high schools on the Prove Your Plan program, and we've got 2 clients with the Futurepreneur program so far. I'll just note this graph that I have up there, and the reason is because you can see the disparity between the clients that we see in our office and the average age of Bruce County residents. So we really are seeing a lot of young people, particularly in Saugeen Shores. One of the things that we've really noticed, and I've said this before, is that we've got a lot of young females, and in the slide previous to this, you'll have seen that there are about 70% of our clients are women. And a lot of that has to do with the Bruce Power nuclear plant. A lot of spouses and those jobs at the plant, for whatever reason, happen to be male-dominated jobs. So their partners come, they're well-educated, and they tend to go to one retail job, service job to another, and they want to be more inspired than that. So we see a lot of those folks in our office. So lastly, I want to invite you to be involved in the Business Enterprise Center, and that is through your feedback. We really encourage and appreciate what you have to say. Are we doing the right thing? Could we do more? Love to hear that from you. We are planning a Starter Company Awards presentation. We want to do kind of a formal ceremony to congratulate the folks that have received the awards. That's coming up April 23rd. If you are available, we'd love to see you. We're working with the Chamber to do kind of an open house for our new counselors, and that's going to come sometime in May. And then again, I just want to bring your attention to the Brass Awards and hope that you can all attend with us on May 30th. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill. Any questions for Jill? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just for additional information. The workshop Wednesdays, you said that the one coming up is about, you said service, I think, customer service?
Actually, no, merchandising around a service business.
How do people, where is it, and how do people
It's in our office. So we have actually two goals. We have our workshop Wednesdays in Port Elgin, and then we have Maximizing Mondays in Walkerton. And we do that primarily through our e-blasts, our social media, that sort of thing. They start at 8, so it's 8, roughly from 8 until 9:30. We try to keep them to an hour, but typically they go to an hour and a half. People have questions and so on. And so this one coming up on Wednesday is merchandising for a service business.
Superintendent, Deputy Mayor, first, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thanks, Jill, for the presentation. And, you put a pretty extensive list of things up there that the Business Enterprise Center does, but I don't really think you've encapsulated it all. I think I've seen you and your colleagues in your office do a huge number of things at the grassroots level with business owners on an ongoing basis, whether it be through the PEG and CATS groups that we had earlier as part of Spruce the Bruce, or just, somebody comes up with a bright idea and you can give Jill a call and she'll help you execute it. And I know I've seen that with regard to the BIAs and other organizations as well. So, I think your organization is really starting to is increasingly forming a real linchpin in economic development in the municipality, and is critically important. I know you're a Bruce County-wide organization, but it's critically important, I think, specifically to the town of Saugeen Shores, and your presence in the town of Saugeen Shores, I think, lends itself. I think we get a great deal of advantage out of your being present in the community here. So I think that's all to the good. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate that and highlight some of the things that you're doing. I did have one question, Mr. Mayor, and I wonder, I know this might put you on the spot a bit, Jill, but I'm wondering, could you? You're interacting with business owners trying to get started all the time, and business owners who are trying to stay in business too, and trying to figure out how to do that. Could you give us some idea of the top 2 or 3 big challenges that business owners are facing trying to get started or trying to keep going in Saugeen Shores at this moment?
Yeah, it's market is always a challenge. It's the best laid plans. Research is really important. So, starting with your research and developing a really healthy, really good business plan is always key. The next hurdle is we live in a small community, and that's by and large the fact. So which is even why it's crucial to do your research and really plan out and make sure that you have a really good idea and that you can make it through the winter. You can't just rely on the summer. So market is definitely it's an issue. So anything that we can do to support ongoing marketing initiatives, to get people here and that kind of thing. And the other thing, what I find is our goal is to always have our ear kind of to the ground to make sure that we're providing support services for people in businesses to kind of get them through those hurdles. And thank you for your comments.
Councillor Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question, comment. Thanks for your presentation, Jill, and come a long ways in 15 years. A lot of great work. So
yeah, thanks.
Congratulations to you. The Starter Company Awards presentation, April 23rd. What location, time?
Not sure yet. It may be in our office, but we'll let you know the details when they're available. Yep.
That's good. Thanks.
Nothing further. Thanks very much, Jill.
Thank you.
And I agree with what the Deputy Mayor said. I think we're very blessed to have that office in our community, and I often say it's one of our underused resources. I know there's lots of more assistance that you could provide if we had the clientele, but I know you're working hard at that, so thanks.
Thank you very much.
The next deputation is Chris Wilson and Maria Bertrand. They're here about VPI Inc. and Adult Learning and the Adult Learning Center. Welcome, ladies. And
Hi. Yes, I am Lynn. I am the Community Education Coordinator with Lake Huron Learning. Our mission is to provide learning opportunities for professional development and personal advancement. There's personal and community rewards in having a learning center in a rural community. Living in a rural community, you are limited to advancing yourself to a higher level of learning that is available in the city. We are dedicated to provide educational opportunities for Bruce and Huron counties. Lake Huron Learning offers in-class college certificate programs and courses. We also do professional development. With that, we have people from all over Bruce County attending. We are in Kincardine, but we have people from Southampton driving all the way to Kincardine to take a Fanshawe College program. So we work with Fanshawe College to bring the college programs and courses. So having it local, it's affordable and accessible. The opportunities for enhancing skills and personal growth through a wide range of learning opportunities. It also helps expand employment opportunities due to a more highly skilled workforce. And its potential to retain youth if training is available locally, which we've had quite a few people attend that have just graduated high school and took a Fanshawe College program. And it was project management, and it helped them a lot. They said they probably wouldn't have traveled to London to take the program. And it's also potential for economic development. So these are some of the training opportunities we offer in class, live with an instructor and fellow students. The PSW, which is a Personal Support Worker Certificate, the Office Administration, Project Management, and we're on our 5th Project Management Certificate program that we're offering. We've got Healthcare Office Assistant, and we've ran 2 of those programs. We offer microcomputer applications, and these are personal development training, which is P6 scheduling, risk management, and basic computer, Word, Excel training. Now, the collaborative is something unique in Bruce County. We are all in one building. It is Adult Learning, Contact North, and VPI. And together we create a sustainable community through educational opportunities and employment services. And at this time, like I mentioned, we are unique, and we are taking advantage of being unique since we have everybody all in one area. If an individual walks in and wants GED, we will walk them or get Maria from Adult Learning to come and talk to them about what they're needing. She'll do an assessment, and from that, if they want to take an online training, they can with Contact North, or take the in-class training with like Lake Huron Learning. And after they've completed, we can walk them over to VPI, who will help with resume building, interview skills, and job search. And I will let you talk to Maria with Adult Learning.
Hi, I'm Maria, and I'm the Program Coordinator of the Adult Learning Center, formerly known as Saugeen Literacy. I've been in Port Elgin for many years. We cover Bruce Grey and Collingwood. So we are everywhere. In Port Elgin, we're at Maple Square Mall, just for you folks to have a reference. In regards to Kincardine, the collaborative, my focus are on 4 things. I'm going to make it simple. Anybody who wants a job and needs employment skills and training, I'm the person you see. You want to get your GED, finish your high school, get your Ontario Secondary School diploma, I am the person you see. You have issues with math or need to do an aptitude test for Bruce Power, I'm the lady you see. Aptitude tests are not just for Bruce Power. Aptitude tests are in every profession now. If you haven't had one in a while, they're everywhere. Math is a skill. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. And that is one thing we definitely notice quite a bit. So we have college graduates who go to Bruce Power, fail aptitude test. Then they find us, and we work with them until they pass it. Digital and online learning. We'll work with basic skills. I don't know how to turn on a computer, to people who want Word and Excel. We're no different than what Lynn is providing. We're hands-on. We're a hands-on organization. We'll work one-on-one with you. And we also do assessments. We do standardized tests to see where the person is at. I always tell people you're a puzzle as an adult. I don't know you. I don't know what parts you know, what parts you've learned, and what parts are missing. So I'm your fairy godmother. Wherever you want to go is where I take you. So we see people as young as 18. And my next slide. How do I turn this? And that is Harry Shildroff, folks, from Saugeen Shores. Harry got his GED with us last year. Harry is the oldest member in the province to get his grade 12. And Harry was also the valedictorian for our graduation in Toronto. So we're quite proud of Harry. So for us, it doesn't matter what age. Come and see us, and we'll work with you. Sarah couldn't be here this evening. Contact North is the other organization that is in the same building with us. All you have to know about Contact North is all online learning. So I may have an individual who wants to do their GED, but then they want to do an online math course. They see Sarah. So again, we work together. Sarah will help you with colleges, university certificates, diplomas, degrees. Anybody here who wants to do some upgrading, or you don't want to go to Waterloo, but you want to take a course from Waterloo, Sarah is the person to do that. She also provides assessments. So you don't know what you want to do with your life. She'll actually work with you, similar to what a guidance counselor would do in a high school. She'll work with you on how to get there. On a personal level, I have a daughter who's using Sarah right now because she wants to get into nursing. Sarah's trying to find out how she can use her university degree towards getting into a proper university. And she said she's finding it great. Exam invigilations. You do not have to leave Bruce County to go write your exams, folks. You can actually write them in Kincardine. Okay, so sometimes people are taking courses at a university or college and feel they have to go to Waterloo to write them. Not necessarily. If Sarah knows, she can organize those, and you can do them in the community. Okay.
I'm Chris Wilson. I work with Employment Ontario funded programs through an organization called VPI. Before I get started, to just give you an overview about what VPI does in this collaborative, it really would be important if you ever have an opportunity to take a trip down to Lake Huron Learning to see the collaborative. It was kind of the vision of past Mayor Larry Kramer, and he had this idea of, we're so far away from a lot of colleges or universities, why not put a center within Bruce County that people can use and access? And that's what we're building with this collaborative. So the 4 groups that we have there, right now we kind of have a very similar model that's happening here in Saugeen Shores at the Adult Learning Center here, just in Maple Square, but we're just kind of trying to put the other pieces to connect that. So I want you to realize that we are looking to build that model to its full potential here in Saugeen Shores. We're kind of just needing to look for a space that's going to work for 4 agencies that could come together and provide that service, because it really doesn't matter where the client starts, it's where they end up at the end with all of the learning that they're going to gather. So our mandate really is, while we're under the Employment Ontario programs, is to provide a wide range of services. So we deliver things like job search and career decision making for individuals. We do what we call a job matching placement incentive. So that's when we're working with the client and the employer. I kind of call it like a matchmaking heaven, where we take an employer who's looking to fill an opportunity, and we have clients who, for whatever reason, are job searching for that new opportunity, and we try to make it a very quick match, because we know driving around Bruce County can become costly, and looking and trying to job search can be very difficult on your own. We have a lot of resources and information, so we run a lot of workshops. We have a monthly calendar that I e-blast out to our community partners, and it gets posted and shared throughout the social media. And we also help with job retention, because we do know that some job seekers do have issues with retaining jobs and maintaining them. Some of the programs that we do run through the Employment Ontario program is the apprenticeship program, the self-employment benefits, and I think it was a great segue with Jill talking about, people wanting to start their own business there. So we run the program for self-employment benefits. We have a program called Job Creative Partnership, which usually allows individuals to learn skills while they're earning wages. Second career for those individuals that are looking to return to school through retraining. Our youth employment fund that is kind of on the wind down at the moment. And now our summer jobs program that's on the wind up. So we'll be looking to fill approximately 230 some odd student jobs with, I think we have 91 employers this year that we're going to approve for funding. Last year we had 79, I think. And this year with the new program called the Canada-Ontario Jobs Grant, which is an opportunity for employers who are thinking of running some training within their company or their organization, and the Canada-Ontario Job Grant will assist in paying 2/3 of that training cost. So those are our programs. This is the collaborative. I guess one of the things that we want the council to sort of realize and take away tonight is probably that it doesn't really matter, like I said, where the client starts or where the employer starts. We want to try and help everybody, and we want to build that model to its full potential here in Saugeen Shores.
Thank you, Lynn, Chris, and Maria. Questions? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
I'm glad you ended, Chris, on the exact statement that you ended on, because my question was going to be, in the midst of what you said, you talked about how it was of interest to grow the collaborative here, and you just said something about space. What do you need to have it become akin to what's going on down in Kincardine? Is it space? Like what else would be required to make it happen?
Well, so come on here. What we have there right now is, you saw the building. It used to be the old Westario building. It allows us to have space for each one of our groups, and we can come and go on any day. So if I'm there on Wednesdays or if I'm there on Friday, it doesn't interfere with Maria's days that she might be there. And it's kind of nice because we can sort of offshoot to whoever needs to see that particular individual. So often we have one client that could in fact use all 4 agencies or for groups to get assistance.
Can I just add? Physically, we'd probably be looking at 3,000 square feet. And we know other social service agencies.
Well, as an additional comment, good. Keep looking, and thank you for putting the 3,000 square foot mark in there, because now maybe a few more people will keep looking for you too. As somebody who worked for 20 years in the university environment, education was a big part of my career life, and I wanted to ask you, how do you, I'm going to confess I've never been into your space in Maple Square Mall, so I don't really know what it looks like, but do you do ever any promotional things in Saugeen Shores? Because I have some familiarity with Contact North too. I worked at a university in Northern Ontario for a while as well. But are there ever recruitment sort of things here? Because I do think that there's a ready-made market of retired people, people looking for that. Actually, there's people in this room that I know have asked me about different kinds of courses. I'm not going to embarrass them by singling them out, but they're towards the back of the room. But anyway, do you do any kinds of recruitment drives here? And I would love to see our community find some incentives to provide opportunities for anybody who doesn't have a GED who wants it, to be encouraged and not at all embarrassed about participating in that. So do you do any recruitment type stuff here that just is like open house kind of things?
Yeah, well, we've actually held job fairs, so we've been at all of the job fairs within the area, and usually if it's not us hosting it, it's us participating with the host, which was your Saugeen Shores Chamber just recently. We're about to do one in Kincardine. In April, we're going to do one on 5th down in Walkerton at the high school down there. We also do workshops, so that calendar goes out every month, and we share it through social media. So it gets e-blasted out to community partners. It goes to the library, a myriad of community partners. So that gets posted. It goes to all the schools. We go into the schools. We talk to all of the careers classes. We talk to the grade 11s and grade 12s. We do go in and talk about the summer student program that's coming up and how to find a job, what that's going to look like. We do resume builds, we do mock interviews, cover letter writing. That's why it's important if we had a larger center here that people would be able to access it on a daily basis and come and use those resources. Because we're in Maria's space right now, we do have some resources, but not like we have sitting in Kincardine or in our office down in Walkerton, which is the hub. We're a different hub because a lot of
Councillor Rich, and then.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. I have one question. I think it's maybe more suited to Lynn. I was looking through the training opportunities courses that you offer. How do you decide what you're going to offer in the area, what you think the area needs? Do you work with organizations perhaps like the Business Enterprise Center with an idea of trying to figure out what kind of entrepreneurship ideas there are, or do you know what I mean? Like trying to figure out who do you use for your market research?
You're right. We do work with Jill. I am in contact with Patrick quite a bit to see if there has been requests for college programs to be offered. I work with the community. So they will call, or I'll put it out there. We've put out requests on our Facebook as to what training is needed or wanted out there. We do get a lot of walk-ins requesting specific training. So the training that I do offer is training that's going to hopefully help them be employable. So for example, project management was a request by an individual 4 years ago, and like I mentioned, I've run 5 programs now. So it is the community that's requesting the training. I do surveys to find out what training is valuable out there. Example is the personal support worker. We had a class last year who were employed as they were still in class. So people do get employed right after the program's over or while they're still in class. So the programs are relatable to the community to help them get jobs. So it's not like interest courses or programs. It's all requested individual programs that I do run with Fanshawe College. Right.
You don't have to be a teacher.
Bruce County. So that was another thing I was going to mention is that Fanshawe does only hire local instructors to teach the programs. And we will take, resumes, whatever, and they will look and they'll hire the local people.
Just a quick follow-up. Is there an opportunity to work with other institutions as well and make it collaborative, like where you could have almost any university or community college teach at that location?
Yes, we can. If Fanshawe doesn't have a program that's been requested, I will look out at different universities or colleges to see if they can bring in that program. I've worked with Georgian College to bring in Excel computer training, but it is always nice to bring in another college to give a variety to the community so they're not just one college that they have to take. But yes, I will look at other colleges if Fanshawe doesn't offer that program. Thank you.
Councillor Grace.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. It was a very inspiring, amazing program. My question goes back to the question about that Diane had about the space that you require. Do you need classrooms or offices? Or both?
Both.
How many classrooms?
Well, I've had requests from Port Elgin people that want to take the programs that I'm offering in Kincardine, but because of transportation issues, they're not able to make it to Kincardine. So they've requested the training to be here. But unfortunately, Maria's center in the Maple Square is not large enough. So we would need a computer classroom size. About 15 is a good classroom size that we could have. But it is growing. The request of having college programs offered here is increasing pretty quickly too.
Councillor Mike Myatt.
Just a quick question. You don't have to go into a lot of detail. It was just thanks for the presentation. Thanks for the great work you're doing. Really was pertaining to finances. 100% provincially funded, and is your funding, I assume, and is your funding long-term sustainable funding? I guess it depends on the government of the day, I suppose. But how many years again? So I missed the number of years you've been in operation.
I've been working
10 years. So.
And Lake Huron Learning's 5 years.
So it's been there's track record. So I was just wondering about your funding formula and sustainability of it. So thank you.
Well, again, thank you very much, and thank you for coming, because I think that's part of you. I think it's very instructive that the community knows that these services are out there, and I think that's a challenge that we have all the time to know that there's such a wide range of services that are provided here, and we thank you for coming to council, and if we can help you get the message out in any way, by all means, let us know.
Yeah, I think you need to know. That's
Okay.
important, right? So that means and we've left information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
The next deputation is Doug Pedwell, and he's here about Huron Bridge Birding Festival. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. There it is. This is a follow-up to last year. Some of the councillors were here, and they asked me questions to which I did not have an answer. So I'm back to give you the answers for this year and to inform those who weren't here last year of what it's about. I've entitled this year's talk, The Invisible Tourist, because very few people get to see these people. They're around. They leave 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and they're out and gone. However, this is a growth industry, big time, all over the place, but particularly in the Bruce. Now, we've been going for 17 years. We're based in McGregor Point Park, and for a second year in a row, we have been named one of the top 100 festivals in Ontario, and we're after other couple of categories as well. We are probably one of Canada's best kept secrets, and we are small, and that has come because of a deliberate decision that we made to keep all our events small, no more than 20 people in an event except for presentations. We cover a lot. We don't do just birding. We are also a nature festival. We do photography, we do astronomy, we do sketching, and a bunch more things. But why are we here? Well, this map demonstrates what the birds do. They come up through Pelee Island, through the Niagara Peninsula, through Long Point, and they congregate right here in Bruce County. This gives us a very interesting phenomenon, which we take advantage of. You can't read this, but this just shows some of the 80 events that we have and where they're located in Bruce County this year. There are 47 events being held this year within the boundaries of Saugeen Shores. Well, what does the invisible tourist look like? Probably the most common thing is a Tilly hat. You don't see them with their binoculars. You don't see them because they're out and about. They come into town, they have lunch, washroom break, and disappear again. Very little research has been done in Canada. The only people that I've been able to find that have done the research is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Survey, and this information was taken from the 2011 survey. They've been at it for a number of years. They discovered about 25 years ago that there was something called wildlife watching, because prior to that they always did hunting and fishing. They suddenly discovered that wildlife watchers spend a lot of money, a tremendous amount of money. As a matter of fact, they have surpassed hunting, they have surpassed fishing, and I think this next time they will have surpassed both of them combined in the amount of money that gets spent. And you can read the information there. It is the world's fastest growing activity. Why? Because it's relatively inexpensive. It's low cost. Basically a pair of binoculars and a good field guide and you're set. Unless of course you travel a lot, then you've got to buy field guides for wherever you go. Now, this is almost a recession-proof business. It was worth, in 2011 in North America, it was worth $60 billion. Now, one of the things I was asked, how much did the people spend last year? Well, I really didn't have a handle on that. I knew it was a fair amount. Now, we have our information based on the surveys we returned, and we had a return rate of 47%, which was pretty good. Now, we do know they visited 29 restaurants in the area. They also visited a lot of gas stations, and they did some souvenir shopping. The average camper spent $540. I found this one interesting. The motelers spent less. And the locals spent $258. I guess nobody wanted to go home and cook after they had been with us for the day. Now, what surprised us was that 70% of the people returned to the area for a week or more. We knew that they came back, but we didn't realize it was that high and for how long. So that's a real economic plus to this area. Now, this poorly photographed map is the festival participants for last year. We knew they came from all over. The farthest was from Halifax last year. But what threw us, or surprised us, I should say, was the single events. People traveled such a long distance for one event, partly because of the leaders we have involved, but because birders are also there's a group of them we call listers. They want to check off the birds. Like this one. This is a brewer's blackbird. It's like a red-winged blackbird without the patch, except it's found here in Bruce County and nowhere else. It breeds here. So the people come and check it off. I had people come up to Ferndale, where I was with a group. They had driven up from Toronto that morning, and we left at 8 o'clock in the morning from Ferndale, so you know what time they had to get up to get to up there. Now, what attracts people to the festival itself? Well, we have all types of habitats. We have two different sets of shorelines. We got the rocky ones, we have the sandy ones, and we have some marshy shorelines. We also have grasslands, swamps, and different kinds of forests. Those habitats give us all sorts of different plants and birds. We also have partnerships with the Nature Conservancy of Canada, Escarpments Biosphere, National Parks, both conservation, and all the provincial parks. So we have access to a tremendous pile of habitats and terrain. A lot of people, particularly the photographers, come up to get some of the early spring orchids. We have, in this area, 340 species of birds documented. During the festival, we get around 200 on a regular basis, because remember, we're talking just 8 days out of the migration series. Now, we also have some rarities. For example, the spotted turtle is an endangered species. People come to see that. Occasionally, we get things flying in, like the American avocet. That picture was taken down at Miramichi Bay. We have unique plants like the nodding trillium, and of course, we have the piping plovers. They've been caught in an intimate moment there. Now, one of the things that I was doing a report for something else, and I didn't realize that some of the birds around my place had made it onto the species at risk list. For example, the eastern meadowlark, which nests right around me, the barn swallow, the bobolink, the monarch butterfly, which I knew about. I didn't realize the others were now on the endangered, well, we could call the endangered species, but species at risk. And they have now got up to the threatened category. That's rather important. That also brings people into the area to find these because they can't be found elsewhere. Now, I did mention we have the small groups. For example, we have the dwarf lake iris. This is an indigenous species to this area. It's only found on the Lake Huron shoreline, the only place in the world. We also get the occasional stray, such as the western tanager here. I also mentioned our leaders. The fellow on the left is Michael Carlson. We import him from the States because he knows this area so well. He comes up here, his fill up right away, and if you go with him, prepared for a long day, and be very tired afterwards. He leaves at 6, gets back around 11, 11:30. Todd Pepper was an interesting fellow for us. He's leading here. He's new to us, but he's a well-known birder. We had a hard time to find him. When we did catch up to him, he was in New Zealand. We're adding to his life list. Fred Javits is a Southamptonite, and he always does the opening presentation on Friday night, which is always sold out. This year it's on how to identify shorebirds. Audrey Armstrong is our butterfly lady, another local. Our dates are on the brochure there. We do amphibians, reptiles, and of course butterflies. As I mentioned, we have over 80 events. You can see people dress for these events. This year, we're introducing something new called the Family Weekend. This is going to have bird banding in it. This is Brendan Taves. He'll be one of our bird bandings. He's the young boy who actually found the first piping plovers at Sauble Beach a number of years ago. This is some of the activities. We're doing Birding 101 for families. It means parents, grandparents can bring their grandkids or their kids, learn the basics of birding, because it's a recreational activity that will stay with you for as long as you live. Now, at the present moment, 28 events were full when I counted this morning. I fully expect that to be about 35 by the end of the week because some of the other ones, in fact, you have a brochure which I gave you which has F on it for full and a dot. The dot means it's over 75%, and some of those were only 1 or 2 off, so they'll be full. We've had foreign visitors. We had people from Brazil. Newton George is one of the top birders from Tobago. He came, and this was his favorite bird. They don't get them down in Tobago. He just loved this bird. He couldn't say enough about it. We're a volunteer organization, and we try to keep the costs down. As a matter of fact, if you come for the entire 8 days of the festival, it's $140. That's one of the ways we keep the costs down. Now, we have all-day events, and they start anywhere from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6:30, 7, and they run until late afternoon and sometimes longer. We have half-day events, and we have a series of evening presentations. If you try to do everything, this is what you look like at the end of the festival. You're worn out. Now, One of the things that we would ask from the council is to be able to have an opportunity to have some input. For example, Miramichi Bay, which is one of our hot spots, literally, for Bruce County. Really, there's no parking areas. If we pull off the road at Miramichi Bay, we're onto the bike trail. Little things like that. It's actually, and habitat protection obviously is important. Because if we can keep these birds around, you stop and think about it. The Golden Horseshoe area is rapidly disappearing. There's no people, even if you've been reading the papers, you can see that the green belt is now going to be looked at for development. Where are people going to go for their recreation? We've got it all, and we can have a growth industry here. Now, we are already going to start on 2016, 2017. This was taken from a couple of years ago. Normally, you don't get people bunched up like this. The reason we were inspecting an area looking for one particular bird, we were bunched up because of bears. And we got to watch a sandhill crane take a young bear to task for trying to take its chick. And you thought that the bear would win? The crane won, the bear ran. I'd also like to say a special thank you to Jennifer Lynn Thorne and Cheryl Beamish of Saugeen Shores, because they've been quite helpful to us this year. So, in finality, gone birding. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Questions? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is by far the best photography I've ever seen in a deputation in 3 terms on council, so yay, you've raised the bar on that level. I am curious to know, we provide a lot of support to a lot of other festival or tourism type activities here. It's not always so obvious that we provide a lot of support to this when it has such a big impact, because they don't require, road closures and that kind of thing. I'm just curious to know if there's the possibility of the town considering, if for this year maybe, or certainly for the future, the option of having one of their sessions here in the chambers so that it could be broadcast because of the capability here with Eastlink. That might be an option that could be something we could be supportive of. I'm also, we've had deputations a couple of times about the parking situation along Miramichi Bay Road. Is there the possibility, and I'm glad Stuart's here tonight, is there the possibility of us having some signs prepared? We all know how much election signs cost. We know GW signs can make those kinds of signs. Some signs prepared that are temporary signs that could be put up that weekend, basically saying, caution birders, like on the back of that van, but, that they're there, more noticeable for anybody driving, that, there's something special going on. There's a bird thing going on, and, some people who aren't into birds might be inspired to notice, geez, there's some birds down here, but also perhaps something that would enable, on a temporary basis that weekend, some parking on that stretch, because we all know that we've seen people pulled over, and you can see them out, with the Tilly hats and the binoculars. And there must be some way that we can provide that kind of support, much like we do, when other things take place along the waterfront, we block vehicular traffic completely. This is a case where I guess I'm asking for us to enable some vehicular parking for one weekend for a very important aspect. And I guess I would just like us to explore ways that we could provide some very obvious support, because we do that with a lot of other organizations by providing staff resources for setups and breakdowns and signage at different times. So thank you, Mr. Pedwell, for the presentation. I always learn about another bird I haven't heard about when you're here, and this is very cool, and this may be the year that I actually sign up for something. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You just reminded me. I was instructed, and I forgot to write it down for myself, to offer an invitation to the council for 2 members to attend one of the sessions. If you get in contact with me, I'll make the arrangements.
Thanks very much, Doug. Just to Diane's comment, if in the future, if you have some requests of the town, I think by all means talk to our people here. They'd be more than willing to work with you.
When I was talking the parking, like during the festival, that's just a temporary thing. Like we're there maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But I was thinking in the terms of the long-term down the road when the tourists come and do
Sure.
this on their own.
Sure.
We can point at the hot spots so that on a long-term basis, when you're doing redevelopment, this can be worked.
Well, by all means, if you want to talk to our staff about that, we'd be interested in hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is a public notice staff report, and it has with the 2015 municipal operating budget, and our Director of Finance, Kate Allen, will present.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This report builds on the report we brought to the last meeting where we looked at the capital budget. This is now the operating budget portion. So following several capital and operating budget review meetings, council and staff have finalized the complete 2015 budget process with a projected total tax levy increase of $622,000. These are new tax dollars provided through growth and a final levy increase of 4.21%. The 2015 budget and levy are impacted by the loss of $343,500 in grant funding from the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. The OMP funding is expected to be further reduced in 2016 and 2017. When the municipal tax rate is combined with the county and the estimated school rates, the average overall property increase is 3.25% compared to our municipal levy increase of 4.21%. So our last operating budget meeting was on February 9th, I believe. There have been no changes to the budget other than those that are listed in the report, and these are all the outcomes of our last meeting a couple weeks ago. So we've added $15,000 to the operating budget for the pool consulting, $25,000 for a committee staff support person, $6,000 to the capital budget funded from taxation, and then we identified some savings in some gapping positions to offset some of that, bringing our preliminary increase of 3.86% up to 4.21%. The other item that came out of the February 4th meeting was more information about the waste management user fee. What could that flat fee be in order to keep waste management revenue neutral? So we did a couple things. We were able to transfer some of the reserve transfers and decrease one in order to catch up for some debt. And so in the end, the proposed fee is $27.53 on every single property, and this would keep waste management, recycling, collection, and landfill revenue neutral in total. So upon approval from council, this fee would be added to Schedule A of the Consolidated User Fee Bylaw and included in the tax bill on the final levy, and that will be issued in July 2015. Attached to this report are 4 schedules. The first one is the departmental summary, and that just shows the tax burden by each department compared to last year's budget. It should be noted, and I've noted it here, that the BIA districts of Port Elgin and Southampton have not been included at this time. Schedule B provides the 2015 capital budget. As I've said, there's no changes to this other than the addition of the $6,000 that came out of our meeting 2 weeks ago. Schedule C outlines the reserve and reserve fund activity. Again, this report is the same report that you received before. And then finally, Schedule D illustrates what the property tax impact to a residential property in Saugeen Shores would be when we combine the county and the school. So we know what the county's increase is at 3.8%, and we've estimated that the school rates will stay consistent with last year. All of these documents, as well as our completed detailed budgets, will be posted to the website once it is approved by council.
Thank you, Kate. Then the recommendation is, and it's fairly lengthy, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Saugeen Shores approve the municipal budget for the year 2015 as follows. Expenditures operating and reserves $23,225,226. Capital $5,639,350 for a total 2015 budget of $28,864,576. That'll be based on revenues of $13 million for operating and reserves, $13,314,712. Capital, $4,421,729 for a total 2015 revenues of $17,736,441. And then the total for all of those, total municipal taxation will be for operating and reserves, $9,910,514. Capital, $1,217,621, for a total 2015 budget of $11,128,135. That the Town of Saugeen Shores tax levy be set at $11,128,135 to finance the operating and pre-approved capital budgets of the municipality for the year 2015. This levy includes growth of $217,814, or 2.08%, and a levy increase of $444,933, or 4.21%, for a total levy increase of $658,747. That the tax levy bylaw establishing the 2015 tax rates be considered by council. That the waste management user fee of $27.53 per property be approved, and an amendment to Schedule A of the Consolidated Fees and Charges Bylaw number 96-2014 be presented to council for consideration. Questions? Councillor Mike Myatt. Go ahead.
Quick question through you to Kate, our treasurer, if I could. Kate, the 20% reduction in municipal partnership funding, $343,000. You're saying you're expecting another 20% decrease in 2016, 2017. So it'd be around $280,000 roughly. We're expecting. Is that on the reduced amount, that 20% on $1,374,000 in 2016, 2017?
Yes.
Correct?
So each year it goes down slightly as it is.
Reduction in 2016 from the province, we're looking at another $280,000 reduction in our funding.
If it is at 20%, we won't know that until they let us know what the allocations are.
Just for budget purposes this fall, when do we typically hear from the province about that reduction?
We usually get notification around November.
November? Okay.
Councillor Dave Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Kate. The $27.53 per property for the landfill user fee, the way it was ratcheted up to $27.53 is a bit of a question as to how that was assessed. But also the disproportionality to which it's being applied is, in an urban setting, I can see where each homeowner or property owner would pay that equal fee and the burden would be shared equally amongst all residents. But it's been brought to my attention, and it has merit to the concern, is that people who live in the township quite often own multiple properties. So you have a large agricultural sector operator, and he may own a dozen or more properties, each with its own municipal tax roll. The burden being borne by an individual like that is significantly disproportionate to the regular resident who owns a single detached dwelling on a residential lot in town. And I don't think we considered that carefully enough. And I think that that to ask one person to pay hundreds, if not multiple hundreds of dollars in that levy is seriously flawed thinking. I wonder if there's a way that we could address that, if there could be some way to rebate or to prorate that onto to people that part of their business is owning multiple properties.
If that is council's direction, we can look at those alternatives. One thing that we considered as staff is that this is really looking at the future liability that each property represents on the future landfill, and that each individual property has that future liability, which is sort of how we justified putting it on a per property rather than a per taxpayer basis.
I have some points of my own, but following up on what Councillor Myatt said, I too have some concern about the fact that we voted on a number that we said $25, and then a document now it's $2 and something more. It's not a large amount of money, but it makes me question a lot of other items in here that are not exactly what necessarily the numbers were that I thought we talked about. But in just to follow up with that, I have some agreement with some of it, except it's really important that we, as members of council, take into account that different types of properties have different taxation levels. So, you have to take into account too that, somebody's property might be assessed at this level and that translates into this tax value, whereas somebody else's that's an agricultural property has a different kind of number playing around there. And in the end, there's a number of services in the community that everybody takes advantage of. So I sort of agree with you. And, as a property owner, as a vacant piece of land that, I never put out a bag of garbage, I'm okay with me being asked to contribute to that. I can see, though, out on the more rural parts of the province how, there is a question there. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't think we should just assume burden, on an equal level across the community because there's different types of taxation too, but there might be something there that requires some extra thought. I do, though, have a number of questions, concerns, and comments. I would have liked to have seen, and hopefully it will happen in the future, a complete isolation from the capital and the operating budget of the business activities of the town, the trailer parks and the harbor operations, because I do find it concerning that it shows up in the budget here as a charge against future capital reserves and its harbor numbers. And, the way that we've been looking at the harbor over time, the harbor is supposed to be self-contained budget. It's supposed to be a contributor to the revenues of the town. But when you see dollars coming out of future capital reserves into the harbor, it's taxpayer money there. So I know that there's an accounting thing going on in there, but it's very deceptive when you just see it represented that way on here. So I would like to in the future see those business activities, the trailer camps and the harbor, a completely separate item, because they are supposed to be generating revenue for the town, so they play a role in our budget, but we should be able to look at them in isolation and just see how they're working, if they're working, because they should be operated differently than the rest of it. So I'm a little confused by that. I did want to ask a couple questions though. The local improvements line in terms of funding for a number of things, there's nothing there anymore. Are all of the projects where that might have played a role, are they all finished now? Or have we ever had any?
That might have been for a project that was removed from the capital budget. So that
because this new fee with the waste management, that's kind of the category it fits into, right? Because it's sort of a charge across all of the taxpayers, and local improvement would have hit taxpayers in a certain area for a certain thing. So it's kind of this. So something like the North Shore sewer installation project would have fit. Something would have fit in there. So the fact that there's nothing in there, there's nothing this year. I'm just curious. Are there still projects in the community that have that applied to them, or have we finished off everything?
Correct. As you said, the north of the river project's one of them. We've done others, and we contemplated one in the 2015 draft budget, but that was removed, and that had a local improvement charge on it.
Okay. I find it concerning too, and I understand sometimes, we try and we get turned down by the province, but at first glance, it sort of appears that we're only getting some grant money for one thing. That's disappointing, and I know it's not necessarily anybody around the room's fault, because sometimes we submit something and we get turned down. I am wondering though, because and it's going to come up later on. There's Ben Lobb, MP, gives us a grant opportunity. So I'm just curious, how do we in the future provide a better opportunity for us to go after money? And yes, there's staff time involved in this, but and I appreciated Lisa Thompson's reply that she had gone to bat with us to try and get some information, but there's grant money out there, and we don't seem to be tapping into it as much as maybe we should. So that's just a concern. And I would like to also ask for, very specifically, for us to consider having sometime either in the summer or extremely early in the fall, very specific opportunities for council to have budget meetings specifically related to reserve funds and a mid-year kind of budget session where we can talk about how some of this really will come into play next time around. The reason why I ask that is that we have reserve funds. I've been here a number of years, and I still don't know why some of them exist or what we can use them for. And I'll use one example. For example, there's over $500,000 sitting in a parkland or park reserve fund. There's two of them. I can't remember the exact title. It generated this past year almost $10,000 worth of interest. I think it was $8,900, so I've upped it a bit. But at the very least, you know, what are we should maybe be imagining, like we should, $10,000, that interest, we should be spending it every year. Yeah, we can hold on to $500,000, but I don't know if there's some restrictions on the funds there. So I would like to request that for future consideration, late in the summer, perhaps early in the fall, very budget meetings that are not specific to next year's operating or capital budgets, but give us a chance to talk about the budget process differently. I also just want to say once again out loud that I find it difficult that you know, the capital budget seems it didn't hit the 1% increase that we'd hoped for. It was 0.73 or 0.75, but there are capital expenditures that are included in the operating budget, because as soon as we debt finance something, the debt shows up in future years as an operating charge. So those are, in fact, capital expenditures. So it's very confusing, and I also find it difficult that there's park items in the operating budget that are for acquisitions and additions to parks that, in my mind, those are capital expenditures too. They're not maintenance issues. They are additions to parks. So, you know, just it would be nice over the next little while to have all of that sort of show up in a way that it's very obvious to us that there's a whole lot more capital stuff going on, but because it's debt financed, it's showing up in a different budget. So thank you for answering my question, Stuart. But those are just my thoughts. I realize, you know, we're far enough along, but I too have concern about the waste management charge, because I was disappointed that it's not the number that we actually approved. But, you know, I can sort of understand a bit of what Councillor Mayette is saying. So I don't know how we proceed with that, but that's a valid question, I think.
Just to comment to that waste management, we didn't approve anything. We said to go back and come back with it, and they suggested a range of numbers. So we didn't approve $25. Staff were told to come back with those three, with that transfer to capital, and so this is the number that so I'm not disappointed at all. In fact, I think you come back with a good number. And I think you've got another comment.
Just a brief follow-up to the part of the conversation about reserves and reserve funds. That's something that our Director of Finance hopes to have in front of Council in the next number of weeks on the outside.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to attest to that, I can say the police service just received a request from the Director of Finance on that front to consolidate our reserve funds. I'm not sure we're going to do it, but or be able to do it, but we have received the request. A couple of comments. I do want to speak up to the waste management thing, but first just a comment to what the Vice Deputy Mayor said about reserve interest. And it's important to remember that at the beginning of this process, we applied all reserve interest to the tax levy, which was an intentional move that we made in order to keep the tax levy down, and we've decide whether we were successful or not and how far we kept it down. But those are the kind of decisions that we're making, right? I mean, you know, it's not as though the $10,000 that reserve or the considerably more money that other reserve funds made is just piling up in the reserves. We're using it, and unfortunately, we're in this situation because the province is of the opinion that we ought to raise taxes, property taxes, in the town of Saugeen Shores. That is the patent and written opinion of the government of the province of Ontario. As a result of that, we're put in a position where we must spend our reserve fund interest in order to make our tax levy affordable to the citizens of Saugeen Shores. And unfortunately, as has been reported by the Director of Finance in this report, we're going to continue to be put in that position by the province. We have heard, or to a greater extent, we're going to continue to be put in that position. We have heard, and we did hear some positive information about, or potentially positive information about the Connecting Link Fund and the potential that the province might be back on board with some Connecting Link money. Hopefully that will come to fruition, and it was positive to hear that, but the general tenor remains the same, in my opinion, and that is that the province is of the opinion that Saugeen Shores' finances are in too good a shape. Its citizens make too much money, and therefore they all ought to pay more tax. And that, again, once again, is the opinion of the government of the province of Ontario. So that's the situation in which we find ourselves. With regard to the garbage fund, and I agree with the mayor in terms of how that came to fruition. I think the $25 number, which was a number that was proposed by me and was supported by council, to my recollection, but was done so, I think, on a basis that we would look at it further. And the key thing to remember there is that in order to reach the $218,000 that we needed, if we had set the levy at $25, that would have required a contribution from the tax levy to balance the fund, to balance the waste management. What we directed staff to do at a subsequent meeting was to come back with a number that did not require support from the tax levy, and that is the number that is before us, $27.53. So I see the continuity in that discussion, and I think the conclusion it might make sense in terms of that conversation. It's interesting, though, the way that staff has broken down the levy in terms of what it's going to fund in this report is interesting. I think it requires some clarification, though, I guess. The intention, and I guess staff can correct me if I'm wrong, or somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but my belief is the intention of this levy from the beginning was to do with waste management what we have already done with water and sewer treatment and distribution. And that is to say that every property that is serviced by the service benefits by that service. Every property that has the potential to be serviced by the service benefits in terms of its overall value, in terms of its saleability, by the very existence of a landfill site in the town of Saugeen Shores, or by the very existence of water treatment plant facilities or sewage treatment plant facilities in the town of Saugeen Shores. So on that logic, on that basis, staff made a recommendation that we divide waste collection from landfill, effectively, that the landfill site be separated from the waste collection system. So thereby, waste collection would be funded by the bag tag, the pay-as-you-throw service that we established a number of years ago, and the landfill site would be funded over time through this levy. Now, I don't think that we haven't gotten all the way there, but I think that's the intention of the program, or at least that's what we were heading towards. And I suspect in the 2016 budget, we'll be considering going the rest of the way on there. What we've sort of half settled on, without saying it out loud, maybe, is that we did say it out loud maybe at the beginning, is that we're hoping to phase this in. You know, we've settled on a lower number, and that a phase in is what we're doing, so we minimize the hit in year one. But what was originally recommended was a $50 fee. So, but that's the logic behind this, and I think that although it funds these transfers to reserve and part of a transfer to future cap or to the fleet reserve, what it really is doing is setting up a new regime for paying for waste management in Saugeen Shores, where properties that benefit by the existence of a landfill site will pay for it, whether or not they throw garbage away. Because whether or not they throw garbage away doesn't mitigate their benefit. They benefit one way or the other. Every property does. And I think that there can be a clear distinction. And if you don't throw garbage away, you don't benefit by the collection system, and you don't pay for it because you don't buy any bag tags. And so you're not paying for collection. You're not paying for the trucks on the road or the guys collecting it. If you don't throw any garbage away. But what you do pay for is the part that you benefit by, whether you throw garbage away or not, and that's the existence, the very presence of a landfill site. And I think that makes sense. That makes sense to me, and I think it will make more sense going forward. Quite frankly, I kind of wish it's the system we had established in the first place, because what we had up until this date was, over the long term, an unsustainable system in terms of how it was funded. You couldn't, bag tags could not, because of the behavior that they inspired, the reduced use of garbage over time, the reduced placing of bags at the curb that happened. The revenues were bound to go down over time, and we were bound not to have enough money to run the landfill site with the bag tags, and that's what's occurred. And so this, I think, will be a more stable system that will serve us well into the future, and we can continue to operate the service that we all need and we all rely on a more sustainable way, and we hopefully don't have to have these sort of difficult decisions in the future. So, I mean, I guess that's all going around, Mr. Mayor, to say that I will support the budget as presented. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grace.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have a question about then still on the levy, because it's a question of clarification, because it says that 75,000 of that amount is being transferred to expansion reserve, and then the remainder would be for repayment for fleet and equipment reserve. Is that for garbage collection, or is that for somehow to do with the landfill expansion?
So the future capital payment is for the landfill equipment, so it's specifically for the grinder and the excavator that's at the landfill. And the transfer to equipment reserve is for the fleet, including all the equipment at the landfill and the collection equipment.
I have a comment, and I'm going to make it fairly brief. I think your comment about, we've recognized that we need that $218,000 to operate the landfill site in some way, whether you do it with the $25 per property, or if you go to the levy, then every property pays on your assessment. So you're going to pay, every property you own would be assessed in any case if you put it on the levy. So I mean, to me, it's one fee that we know the set fee, and we know that it's being dedicated to a particular purpose, and I have no trouble supporting it, nor the recommendation. Councillor Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to pass on my thanks and congratulations to staff for, I think, capturing really the wishes of us councillors and mayor around the table, what we discussed during budget deliberations, and I for one will be supporting the motion. I think that, we take into consideration, we're looking at a tax increase 3.25 compared to a municipal levy of 4.21. I think anytime you raise taxes, there'll be people who won't be supporting it out in the community. But I think at the end of the day, we did our very best to get the rate down to where it is today. And that's not, it wasn't without some hardship. I mean, there's things we probably would have liked to have done. But I think, again, at the end of the day, we're maintaining a high level of service in our community. And I think our community stands up extremely well to their neighboring municipalities across Grey and Bruce counties, perhaps across the province. I think our level of service is tremendous. So thanks to staff. I think you've captured things extremely well. And I, for one, very pleased the way it's presented, so thank you.
If there's no other comments, then I'll call the question. All in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. Opposed, if any. The next item on the agenda is a general government staff report, and has to do with council's visioning session, project priorities, and our CAO, Larry, is going to present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of the orientation session organized for incoming council, it was noted that there's a desire to arrange an informal session to address a number of topics that would begin to drive our business plan. We made those arrangements, and the first session occurred on January the 31st, and we provided a summary to council at the last meeting. A large part of the day was devoted to reviewing council-identified project priorities. The preliminary list was assembled at the session. In addition, preliminary work on identifying criteria through which the list could be evaluated occurred. Council identified both the criteria and the weighting to be used and requested that staff review the initial work and complete the potential scoring descriptions for each of the criteria. So we've attached to this report the proposed matrix. if it was to be adopted, the plan would be for senior staff to then individually rank the entire project list and provide a consolidated preliminary ranking of all the projects based on the matrix for council review and discussion at the second session. So we have indicated that it is proposed to be a two-phased approach, and essentially there would be the elected officials, CAO and facilitator to discuss the topics identified, and we would follow up with the second session and bring the senior management team there to synthesize the outcomes, and we would get the final report to the Committee of the Whole for consideration shortly after that. We're proposing that session, as you note, in the recommendations occur on April the 20th, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Larry. The recommendation is that the tax matrix containing criteria, weighting, and scoring descriptions for initial evaluation of the project list identified by council be adopted, that an agenda be established for a second facilitated planning session, including council and senior management team on April the 20th, to discuss the public service bargain identified in the David Siegel orientation presentation, the results of the evaluation of the identified strategic priorities for the upcoming term and beyond based on the application of the scoring matrix. Comments? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask that the recommendation be split into two votes because I believe that they're two separate items. I don't think it's fair to expect us to adopt a matrix review that we have had no opportunity to discuss after we've seen basically what I consider to be a draft, because I'm curious to have definitions given for a number of the items, and I think that there's some leading kinds of language in there with some of them that I think it would behoove us to have a chance to take a kick at the can. So if the items remain together, I would be voting against the entire package, but I just think that I would be more comfortable if we accepted the matrix with the intent of perhaps having a chance to make some comments and see it come back at another meeting for adoption. And I also just, as an initial comment, I appreciate the comment about the core municipal service item. It's core municipal services defined by the province. The building code stuff is left off that list, but also where are the core services as defined by us, so that, you know, things like garbage collection, maintenance of public lands, and snow removal, and non-vehicular transportation routes in the community. Those are core services as well, but they're not picked up on any matrix that's mentioned here. So I just would appreciate if there's an opportunity to split the items so that we can have a chance to make some comments and have some revisions made.
If you want to amend it, then I need a motion to amend this recommendation, and I'll need a mover and a seconder. You have a mover so that you want to vote on I and then I separately.
Okay, thank you.
So I need a seconder. Comment then.
I just wanted to ask the question. I mean, this the agenda for the facilitated planning session is set for April the 20th. There's an intervening council meeting between now and then. Instead of doing that, is there any way that we could would it? I mean, I guess the question's to Larry. Maybe I mean, the Vice Deputy Mayor obviously has concerns. Maybe there's other comments that members of council would like to submit to the scoring matrix. Is there is it possible to defer and take input between now and then? I mean, I think the easiest thing to do would be just to accept comments from members of council they might have to the matrix, and we could put them forward and discuss them at the first meeting in April if that was possible.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly yes. There's a fairly short turnaround time between, I think it's the 9th and the 20th for staff to do the scoring and so on, but I think we could commit to do that and have it done in time for the 20th. I think what we absolutely would like to leave here today with is clarity on the timing, so the second recommendation on the April 20th, if we're okay with that and the topics, then we could certainly work on the matrix itself and consider it again at the next meeting if that's your wish. I
mean, I don't have any difficulty waiting till if Vice Deputy Mayor wants to add comments, I don't have any difficulty waiting to the first meeting in April to pass that, and then we could just give you direction to go ahead with the meeting on the 20th and prepare an agenda. I mean, that's. I don't know if that requires an amendment, Mr. Mayor. If we could just defer the resolution and then have a separate motion to direct staff to move the meeting forward. Up to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. You both have actually said sort of the same thing that I said. My issue is with the word adopted. It's the way that the recommendation is. It's if we adopt it, we're agreeing to the document. We don't have a chance to review it. So if that word could be changed to reviewed or some other word not adopted, which would mean that it could come back and be adopted.
That's probably a way out of this. And why don't we just change the word adopted to reviewed? Everybody clear on that?
But that indicates that it's coming back in the first meeting in April. That's what we're saying through that wording. Okay, that's fine with me then. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is a staff report, and it has to do with the Bruce Power license renewal, and again, our CIO, Larry, will present.
Mayor, very briefly, the Bruce Power is about to go through the relicensing process, and there's a communication that's been filed at this point expressing support on behalf of the town, and we're simply looking for council to endorse that and to authorize the mayor to appear at the hearing as an intervener.
Comments? Councillor Dave Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, I support this resolution that the mayor should be very vocal and supportive of the Bruce Power operations. And as I have done on behalf of another organization that I belong to, I've written a letter into the CNSC supporting the relicensing application for Bruce A and Bruce B. And as well as that, I think it's incumbent upon everybody, especially members of this council, to register their names on the online petition at Support Bruce Power, www.supportbrucepower.com. And so, yes, I wish you well, and I hope you get a chance to appear at the hearing.
Okay, I guess I forgot to read the recommendation. Put my glasses back on. The recommendation is that council express its support for the application filed by Bruce Power to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission for renewal of its reactor operating license, that the mayor participate in the hearings as an intervener in order to make a submission in support of the application on behalf of the municipality. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. The next item on the agenda then is a Environmental Services and Transportation report as a staff report on water invoice adjustments, and our Director of Public Works, Stuart Doyle, will present.
Thank you. Briefly, as we noted at the last meeting, we've had some issues with some frozen water services this year, and again at the last meeting we discussed a rebate program and the possibility of doing that. So what we're coming here today with is a recommendation to, with that program in mind, to adjust the billing for folks that have run their water as a precaution to protect their pipes as well as the towns. So you'll see in this bullet point form here that those residents who would like to request an adjustment are required to complete a simple form that we'll have online and at the town office. We'll accept the form till the end of May, and after this point we're hoping we won't accept the form any longer. Adjustments will be based on the average use for the same period of the previous year. Adjustments will be a credit on the account. Residents will receive an invoice for the entire amount of the credit. Invoice will follow, and we've already started to discuss that with residents. Credit will be based on the volume charge only, and the capital charge will remain as prescribed in the bylaw. Of note, and we did say this again last time, is that the treated water demand from the water plant has only marginally increased over last year's. So although the town will be providing adjustments to users, projected revenues in the operating budget are not likely to be affected significantly. The water consumption revenues that we just spoke about in the operating budget are based on previous year averages, so this overage will not really be included in that average already. So, And then we'll bring additional information to council on the impacts of the frozen water situation when we do the mid-year financial review.
Thank you, Stuart. Then the recommendation is that council agrees to grant a temporary partial exemption to the fees and charges bylaw for water and sewer rates for owners requesting relief related to frozen water services based on the program outlined in this report. Any questions or comments? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Stuart. Just and you might not have the answers to the questions yet, but I'm just curious about a couple of things. The time frame that you're looking at would apply to when you first put the word out there to run water. The guidance or the encouragement to run water is still happening right now, right? So the period would be from that beginning point to whenever you say it's okay, you don't have to run it anymore. And I have a couple questions, but do you have any sense of when that end date might be yet? It's still too unpredictable?
It is yet. I mean, it'll be for a few weeks yet anyway.
When was, and you can mess up by a day or two, but when did you first issue the call to run water?
Initially, and it might be more than a day or two, the mistake. However, we sent letters out to all residents who did have frozen water last year, just after, I'm thinking right in the new year. And then I think it was February 17th or 18th, it was a Friday, that we had an ad go on the radio that evening.
So, having heard you say that, some residents would potentially have a longer period?
Correct. So,
okay. That's good enough for now. Is this the volume charge, because water and sewer rates are so tied together, the rebate's going to have an impact on both numbers on a bill, okay? And then I have two questions. I appreciate, because some people have already received their big bills and they're anticipating, getting a credit at some point. If they choose not to pay their bills, of course, the automatic system that we have will trigger an interest payment, whatever. Do we have any sense of, are we going to be discounting the insurance or the interest payments later on too? So somebody could conceivably pay only a partial payment on their water bill, anticipating a credit, and be fine in terms of an interest payment.
Correct in certain cases.
Okay. I'll just take that under advisement. And then my last question is really, how are you going to tell people that this is out there? How are we going to get the word out? Is it going to be in a water bill, or how are we going to tell people?
Difficult to go into water bills. The timing is not quite right. We might reach one community, not another, so I'm not sure that'd be very effective. We will post it on the website, and certainly we can look at other options for advertising those options.
Because I do appreciate the idea of having an absolute end date for submitting an application, and I just, I'd like to think that we would do our best to make sure that everybody at least is aware of it before then, because I think that shows good stewardship of, no pun intended, sorry, good taking care of the system, but also taking care of the fact that, it's like we're trying to help people out here when sometimes we don't know if municipal services were really at risk or were in fact causing problems for them. So thank you for the report.
Councillor Dave Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a very important thing for us to be doing. I think a lot of municipalities in this area are struggling with the same issues right now. My question is, although this takes care of people's bills who have used a lot more water because they left the tap running, how does this compensate for people who were frozen and haven't used any water? Are their bills going to just read zero? Or if they're hooked up to their neighbors through a hose, are they just going to get a break for a couple of months?
Well, they would never be zero, as we talked. There's a capital charge that is separate. Now, those who've had frozen water, and surprisingly enough, we've had individuals come in recently that have informed us they haven't had water for weeks, that we were not told of. So those folks, we would read their meter and they would have no consumption. So obviously they would not get that bill. Those who have temporary water lines that the town connected, we've read the neighbors' meters, and we will shifting some of that cost to those who used it and reducing some cost to those who provided it. And I hope that we know about them all. In the case that we don't, it'll be up to them to let us know, but certainly we would rather be the ones connecting the temporary services.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Stu, I mean, over the course of as this has been going on, I mean, I've heard you make that comment a few times that we don't know. I mean, we know of a certain percentage of the people out there who have this issue, but we don't know everybody. There's obviously more people than we're aware of. Is it something that we should be looking at in the future to encourage people over time to report the fact that they're frozen to the Public Works Department? I mean, is that critical to your operation somehow? I just think about this. I mean, this occurred last year. It's now occurred this year. It'll probably occur again in the future. I just wonder if we should have some protocols around this type of situation so we're clear as to how we're going to approach it in the future. I mean, it seems sort of developing here that when the Director of Public Works issues a directive to all citizens that they should run some water in their house, that what follows, at least this year, is a rebate. And I mean, that I could see that becoming a bit of a pattern once you've done it once. If that happens again, I suspect it's something we'll consider again. And I wonder, though, about because and I could be wrong about this, Stu, but I didn't notice a request from your department or from the town saying, if your water's frozen, come and tell us, because it's important to us to know that information. And I don't know, is it important, and should it be something that we do in future?
Certainly, it's very important that we know, and I think if you look on the website, you can see that we've provided a map to residents showing where all the frozen water services are, and that's very important, as you can see where those hot spots are. And you look at some of the outer areas that we've just invested significant money into, we have no issues. I mean, so for us to know where they are is very important. We've also built some pretty good relationship with some local contractors that are calling us when they run into it as well, so they know that we want them to call us and report it. You're right, no, I haven't put on the radio that we'd like them to call, folks to call. Perhaps I assume they would anyway, but as I've seen the last week or two, we don't know them all. And one issue that's coming up now is a lot of folks are coming up to open cottages, and their water's likely been frozen all winter, and they're letting us know now. So we have had an increase in calls in last week due to folks coming up for that purpose.
No further questions then. All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is a planning and development staff report. It has to do with the JK Motel site plan amendment, and our manager of development, Bart Toby, will present. Go ahead, Bart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The former JK Motel is located at 761 Waterloo Street on the east side of Waterloo Street, north of Market Street, to the rear of the existing cinema. The owner is proposing to convert a former motel to accommodate 11 apartment dwelling units. Site improvements include additional parking, landscape, and amenity space. Council previously approved the site plan for the subject lands in 2014. The developer has made revisions to the proposed fencing, landscape, and treatments on the subject land. All revisions to the previously approved site plan must receive council approval. The owner is posting securities to ensure completion of all site improvements and to ensure completion of lock grading and drainage designs. It's recommended the town proceed with the site plan agreement.
Thank you, Bart. The recommendation is that council pass a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with 1675422 Ontario Limited for conversion of the former JK Motel to an 11 apartment dwelling units. Questions, comments? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
This is a very creative, adaptive use of a existing building. It's a good idea. I'm just curious, Bart, since we didn't receive a copy of the previous approved site plan, can you just be a little more specific? The fencing and landscape, I'm suspecting it has to do with the abutting property. It's more masking, but if you could just a further comment, because we didn't have the other one to hold it up against.
Yep. No, that's no problem. The lot line, if you look at the drawing, farthest away from the long section of the building, south lot line, there's some discrepancy along with that fence line. And also at the east section where the car is located, there's a fence line that's being adapted there.
No further questions. Councillor Mike Myatt.
Yeah, just one quick comment. I just wanted to extend my congratulations to the owner of that property for investing a significant amount of dollars into that corner, and I think it's going to turn out to be something real nice. And bringing into our inventory 11 new apartment dwelling units, and I think that's a good news story, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to say kudos to the developer of that property.
Thank you. And if there's no further questions, all in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. Next item on the agenda is Community Services, Parks and Recreation staff report. It has to do with the lawn bowling lease agreement, and I believe our CAO will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our director's quite ill tonight and sends her regrets, so you're going to have to deal with me pretending to be the Community Services Director. So the first report deals with the Lawn Bowling Club lease renewal, and the report indicates that the clubs merged a number of years ago and moved to the current site in Southampton. In approximately 2010, they celebrated their 100th anniversary, and since that time they've been doing some work on both the facilities and the grounds. It's been a number of years since there was a major investment in the site. The existing greens are ranked number 1 in Zone 8, and therefore they are regularly inviting other folks to use the facilities for tournaments and playoffs and those kinds of things. So the existing agreement has expired. It was a long-term one. It was, I believe, 19 years. Staff are suggesting that we consider a 10-year one at this point in time. It is essentially the same document that existed previously, and the club is somewhat self-sustaining, although the report does indicate that there is some capital investment that the town may be required to provide for the facilities from time to time. And we do know that there is a 30-day termination clause should either the town or the lawn bowling club choose to go in a different direction.
Thank you, Larry. Then the recommendation is that Council considers a bylaw to authorize the renewal of a 10-year lease agreement between the town of Saugeen Shores and the Saugeen Shores Lawn Bowling Club. Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
I just had a question. In the actual lease agreement on, the pages aren't numbered, but page 2, there's a comment, and I've never noticed this before in a document. It's number 5, the item number 5 says the tenant shall be responsible for a number of things, including insurance. And then when you jump down to number 7, it says the landlord agrees to accept responsibility for damages to the structure caused as a result of fire and a number of other things. Do we not require their insurance to cover fire? Like, that's just weird to me that the fire is isolated out there. Is that just is it something different, or is it just a little glitch?
I think Kate can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all of our facilities built infrastructure is listed for fire risk with our insurance provider. So I think there's something there that says we have to insure all the buildings for fire.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Grace.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the lease agreement, under the to have and to hold paragraph, the dates, I think, need to be changed. It first of all says it's a term of 19 years, and it probably should be 10, so that would make it to April 2024. No?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the intention is 10 years. Perhaps you have the second to last version that was attached to this, but by the director, but by mistake. But definitely the term is intended to be 10 years, so thank you. We'll correct that.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments, questions? All in favor then? Opposed, if any? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is the staff report waiving fees for the Hospital Foundation, and again, our CAO, Larry, will present.
Mr. Mayor, occasionally the Department of Community Services is requested to waive fees and charges for use of municipal facilities, and there's a policy that deals with that that's attached to this report. And periodically it relates to when there's requests that are raising money for the Hospital Foundation. Those have been intended to be small events and have been dealt with on an isolated basis to this point in time. So the facility rental policy indicates that groups and service clubs are committed to contributing a significant amount of their proceeds from their fundraising event to the town of Saugeen Shores may be eligible to have their full rental fee waived or reduced. although the events identified in the policy will not have their funds allocated towards a Town of Saugeen Shores project, they are being assigned to a project that benefits the greater community. So in light of the fact that Council is committed to raising funds for the Hospital Foundation, staff are recommending that consideration for these requests should also be approved, and that staff would have authority to deal with these as they arise in the future until such time as the capital campaign for this particular project is complete.
Thank you, Larry. Then the recommendation is that the facility rental policy be waived and municipal facilities be provided at no cost in instances where groups are bookings for events for the benefit of the Saugeen Memorial Hospital Foundation until such time the foundation has completed their current capital fundraising campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one question about the recommendation, and that the facility rental policy be waived. I'm wondering about saying rental fee as opposed to policy, just because if we say policy as a whole, does that mean then that we're not requiring them to carry insurance, and is that going to expose us to risk?
So yes, perhaps adding the words that the fees outlined in the rental policy be waived would address that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm totally in support of the Hospital Foundation and the work that they're doing and of the campaign that's going on. I am not supportive of this recommendation. I think it is lacking in information to provide us with a real way to gauge what this really means. Because, again, when I read it, there's deposits and insurance, and a rental fee is one thing, but there's also a lot of staff support time that goes into facilities booking. So is that taking all of that out of the mix? We already have a commitment from council of a certain amount of money. I believe it's $40,000 a year towards the hospital campaign. I without knowing a little more financial impact that's here, certainly I think the taxpayers would be willing to support a slightly higher contribution, but you know, if it got too high, there's a different situation. I don't think there's an indication here of really how much more fundraising has to occur for the foundation for the current project. I tried to find out today. Unfortunately, I didn't get a call back. I just think that if there's specific events, I would certainly welcome them to come and ask us for a waiver. I have some difficulty with us doing a blanket one without additional information because it potentially is a very significant additional contribution from the taxpayers to the Hospital Foundation, which we may or may not be comfortable with. But you know, certainly without that information, I find this difficult to support. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Larry, I mean, there's a number of requirements inside the facilities booking policy with regard to the waiving of fees for events which benefit the town of Saugeen Shores. If a entity came forward and wanted to raise money for the Saugeen Memorial Hospital Foundation, would we go about doing that and take Saugeen Shores out and insert Saugeen Memorial Hospital Foundation and then apply all the other criteria that are in there for them to qualify for that? I mean, there's a number of, there's a series of safeguards in there that require the people to have a certain amount of legitimacy behind them before they can make the claim to that fee waiver. Is that going to be the case in this case? Yes. Okay, and another comment, Mr. Mayor, actually a suggestion with regard to the recommendation. I think I would like to see us specifically identify what the capital campaign is in the resolution. I would like us to say the current capital fundraising campaign for capital improvements of the Saugeen Memorial Hospital. As the Hospital Foundation is always involved in a capital campaign of some nature, and I think I would support this, but I would like to see it just before projects that are raising money for the renovation to the Saugeen Memorial Hospital, full stop. And so I'd appreciate that amendment.
Okay. Any further comments? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? That's carried. The next item then is a staff report that has to do with the chamber lease agreements. And our CIO, will present again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Town of Saugeen Shores has discussed with the Chamber a service contract for a number of years for the operation of primarily the Chamber Business Office as well as the Tourism Information Centres in Port Elgin and Southampton. The Chamber, through that agreement, provides community promotions, special events, planning, and marketing support services as well. In the summer of last year, staff have been working with Christine Anderson from the Ministry of Tourism, who has worked with a number of communities through this process of reviewing duplicated services and identifying efficiencies. The goal was to review both the operations of community services and the tourism support services provided by the Chamber in an attempt to reduce the duplication of services where applicable. This could either be in the delivery of special events or the promotion of services and programs. Since July of 2014, staff members from both organizations have worked successfully in tandem to try and reduce duplication and combine the collective wisdom to commence merging and sharing special event services and marketing support. So savings derived from a potential sharing and the delivery of those services will be considered for supplementary marketing opportunities where they occur. So the service contract price that's been proposed by the Chamber is the number that you saw in your budget operations. It's $142,000. The agreement is essentially the same thing that has existed year over year. We're proposing a single year for the contract to extend, primarily to allow those conversations with respect to the sharing of services and alternate ways to provide services, particularly in the Town Hall and the Tourism Information Office in Southampton, to occur. There'll be some questions, Mr. Mayor.
The recommendation is that the Saugeen Shores Council enter into a one-year agreement with Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce for the provision of visitor information, community promotion, special events, planning, and marketing support services effective April the 1st, 2015, expiring March 31st, 2016. Comments? Questions? Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can appreciate why staff is recommending another one-year agreement. I hope that part of the discussion will also be the potential for the town of Saugeen Shores and its internal resources to be brought to bear more in the community development, economic development field, and that we can work with the Chamber of Commerce to reallocate the way that we may be doing those services to better serve the ultimate goal, which is to improve the local economy. I think we have some great resources here that we've been developing over the last couple of years, which we've seen the results of very recently, and I think we need to think about how we can leverage those. The other comment I want to make, though, is that, and a question I guess to Larry is, the ultimate goal of this, though, of this process is to arrive at a moment where we can put together a secure, longer-term agreement with the Chamber of Commerce on this front, right? Because because one thing we've heard from them for years now, many years, is that they want more stability in terms of the available funding that's going to exist in the future, so that they can plan ahead for marketing campaigns or whatever it is we're requesting that they do in this contract, so that they can be better prepared to deliver it. And I think that's the right thing to do. And I understand why we have 1 year now, but the ultimate goal is to deliver a longer term arrangement. Yes.
The goal is, yes, a longer term, yes, and that would more clearly define the rules of the organizations and make the best use of the taxpayers' dollars. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further questions? All in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. Opposed, if any. There's two items on the agenda for, one more. Yes. Staff report has to do with the chamber lease agreements. And again, Larry will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These are relatively straightforward. They are essentially extensions of the two that exist with the Chamber of Commerce, one for the Town Hall and one for the Chamber operations in their Port Elgin building. They are for a 3-year term and continue past practice.
The recommendation is that the Saugeen Shores Council approves a 3-year lease renewal with the Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce for the lease of the Chamber building in Port Elgin and office space located in the Southampton Town Hall, effective April the 1st, 2015 and expiring March 31st, 2016. Questions or comments? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no problem, no concern at all with the issue of the lease of the Chamber building in Port Elgin. The situation with the Town Hall, though, here we are setting in place a 1-year agreement, and related to tourism, and their interest in the town hall fundamentally is the tourism thing. And here we are setting up a 3-year lease for the town hall when, again, there was quite a number of people who participated recently in a walkthrough meeting there talking about the space. We were not privy to the minutes from that or the conversation. It's my sense that what we're doing with this lease agreement and with the one that we heard previously about with the BIA for Southampton does not pick up the gist of the conversation that went on during that walkthrough. And in fact, messages have been conveyed back to one of the 3 stakeholders in the town hall situation that, the 3-year situation with the BIA is temporary. It can be, changed with 1 month's notice. So why are we not taking the time to really aggressively take into account the walkthrough that happened with the players, that looked at the space, that thought about a different way of using the space, that gave each of them access to what their function was there, set up a meeting room that the BIA could have the use of? Why are we doing this in setting these 3-year leases when this is an area that in my mind is in flux at the moment, and that should have been obvious from the meeting that went on, and the fact that it's being said, oh yeah, well, we're agreeing to something, but they have 30-day cancellation policies or change policies. I just don't understand why we're not taking the time to be creative about the space in the town hall when there's another player interested in being in there, the BIA, and there was some sense of a different way of looking at the space. So again, things are put together, so I guess I'll have to vote accordingly. But I think we've missed an opportunity here to affect some change that would have been some creative energy in that building and would have, I think, been a better use of the space. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe signing this document nor the commitment we made to the BIA at the last meeting in any way diffuses the creativity and the conversations that are going on with the potential users there. I think the Chamber is more than willing. We had a conversation with them no less than a week ago to continue that discussion, and I'm confident that the Chamber is on board, and this is just not the tool that we need to use to get it there.
Thank you. Any further comments? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? That's carried. So now there's 2 items for petition for committee of the whole action. The first is to do with an invitation for Ontario Power Generation to tour the Western Waste Management Facility. And I guess, out of that, I guess we're looking for a date. Is there a date? Oh, sorry, just interest. So is there anyone, would there anyone be interested in touring the Western Waste Management Facility? Lots of interest. So, okay, so now we can see if we can organize a date. Okay? The next item then is an invitation to join the Multi-Municipal Wind Turbine Working Group. I guess I'll look for some direction from committee on this. Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may recall one time I advocated that we join this working group. I think, though, at this stage, my keen interest in all of this is to see us work on and fund and participate in specific projects or programs or endeavors that are going to, that we believe can get us where we want to go, which in my view is still to have no operating industrial wind turbines in the town of Saugeen Shores. But I don't think, I think that, and we did that. In 2014, we took part in the, we pledged to take part in the Quiet Nights project that was underway. I don't think that's going to develop into anything at this point. But there are other things going on out there, like, for example, what's going on in Plimpton, Wyoming at the moment, and the bylaw that's come out there, which is going through some legal challenges. But there are things that we can look at and projects we can take part in that we should take part in, and that we should reserve our energy and our resources to participate in. And you know, the draft terms of reference of the group is that we should discuss and advocate best practices with regard to industrial and commercial wind generation facilities. And I think the best place for that to happen is where Saugeen Shores has been doing it all along, and that is at the administration level. I think the CAO has been participating very heavily in doing just that on an ongoing basis for a very long time and continues to do so. And I can assure you that through that process, we are kept well abreast of the developments in this field, and where possible productive developments take place, I think that we're poised to take advantage of them, as we always have been and always have. My position remains as it always has been, in opposition to the development of these facilities. My view is that we're best to proceed the way we have been proceeding, and to look for proposals and opportunities that come forward that are actually going to deliver outcomes that we believe are positive, or at least have the potential to do so. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd move to note and file.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that this is going to be a very important issue that we need to continue to study. And but I wanted to say I attended a meeting of this group in January, and my concern is that if public money is being spent on participation, that we need to be assured that both sides of the issue, or all sides of the issue, are being investigated and discussed. And so I just want to make sure, I think we have a duty, if we're spending public money, that the project that we're investing in is exploring all sides of the issue. So I would need to be assured that that was happening. The terms of reference indicate that that is happening. So, you know, I don't have a position on wind energy at this point. I'm not coming down other. I just think that it's important that we investigated it, and if we do decide as a committee to join this, I would not feel comfortable unless we are assured that they're looking at all sides of the issue.
Deputy Mayor Huber.
I'll second the Deputy Mayor's motion.
Councillor Mike Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just thank Councillor Grace for attending the last meeting of the Multi-Municipal Wind Turbine Working Group. I think it was a good learning experience. We chatted about it, and you know, I think the whole issue of wind turbines obviously is not going to go away, and I think that you know, we've got a motion to note and file tonight, but I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that you know, it could very well come back to this table over this term of council, and that we need to be kept informed and kept involved as possible. I understand what Deputy Mayor Charbonneau is saying, and you know, perhaps it's not the time to pay the $700 to join as a full member with 2 council appointees and 1 volunteer member of the community. But I guess it doesn't preclude any one of us councillors at any time from attending one of those meetings like Councillor Grace did. I, for one, will be attending one of the meetings, because I like to be as informed as possible, because I think that the whole issue of wind turbines, support or not support, it's not going away, and it could very well come to this table in our term, as I mentioned. So I understand the you know, the motion to table, or note and file, I should say, and but again, it doesn't preclude any of us from attending one of those meetings to be kept informed, which I will be doing. So thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Then Councillor Dave Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be supporting this, to joining this group, or reaffirming our commitment to this group. I think that, as Councillor Mike Myatt said, it's important for us to stay abreast of the changes, and this is certainly an evolving field, and the rules and regulations in the Green Energy Act are all evolving, and I believe, and if anybody knows better than this, all of the other municipalities that are involved in this group have wind turbines in their municipality, as opposed to we have 1, but we're not a site for a major municipal or development of wind turbines. And I think that from that aspect, we can learn from their experiences. So I think it's important for us to be there for the learning and trying to anticipate, because as it's been duly pointed out by Councillor Mike Mayette, these things are getting pretty close, and it's only a matter of time before developers come knocking on the door.
So, okay, I guess I have a motion then that's to note and file. Any further comments? All in favor of noting filing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? That's carried. So the next, we have 11 pieces of information for Committee of the Whole. Vice Deputy Huber.
Yeah, I have a question about two of them and then a comment about a third. Can I do them all at once? Okay. Item number 2, the Lisa Thompson letter. She mentions that she had the pleasure of meeting with some people here. Did she meet with you? Oh, did she meet with any of us?
I think she offered to come, but I'm not sure if she did or not.
Oh.
Sorry, Larry, maybe you?
She met with the CAO and the Director of Public Works.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Then one of the items from David Schmidt, this is a question for the clerk. He comments on the opportunities to host meetings via the internet and teleconferencing. I'm just curious, has any provincial legislation changed to enable those to be legitimate meetings?
No, the legislation has not changed.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that that was noted. And then item number 10, which is the notice from our Member of Parliament, Ben Lobb, concerning a grant opportunity, community projects to increase accessibility. The line item in there that's very specific to municipalities is about kids and accessibility. I would respectfully, and it's a very short deadline to submit something. It's the end of April here. What's the date on here? April the 27th. I would suggest, I don't know if this has been given any thought yet, because it's just immediate release March the 17th. I would believe that we might have an opportunity to put something together quite quickly for a splash pad project at Jubilee Park. The Rotary Club in Southampton has indicated a little bit of interest there. It's an existing accessible park, $50,000. You know, not the Taj Mahal of splash pads, but certainly there might be an opportunity there to put something together quickly. I couldn't, in thinking about other things with the municipality, I couldn't come up with something that might fit in there, but it's a grant opportunity. If there's any way possible, we should be doing something, and that would be my suggestion as an idea. Perhaps Larry knows if anything else has already been discussed.
My understanding that staff is going to bring back a report to council on this opportunity. So the next item is reported department heads, and there are 7 items there. Now, sorry, Cheryl, did I miss you? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a comment in reference to Mr. Schmelt's letters, particularly the one about the where he made a comment about hoping that applicants who are qualified wouldn't be excluded from consideration for committee membership because of their association with a particular group. And I just want to say that I agree with that, and I hope that people will be considered for their qualifications and what they can add to the general discussion. I think it's important to have probably, for instance, for the pool committee, to have somebody who has particular expertise or experience. That would, not every member of the committee, but that at least we'd have somebody like that. Thank you.
Is there any questions on any other reports? There's 7 there. Go to you, Councillor Dave Myatt.
In addition to the comments made by Councillor Grace, the letter from David Schmelt regarding the selection for the pool review process, what he's saying here is that the people that are selected for that committee should be specifically qualified to sit on that, and looking for the words, have a vested interest, necessary skill sets, and possess the required information. I think it's also, and I have fed this back to Mr. Schmeldt, that a balanced viewpoint be selected by people on there, because there is a significant number of people in the community, as I'm sure we've all heard from, who are not necessarily in favor of investing a great deal of public money into a new aquatic facility. And so I think whatever committee we put together there has to have a balanced viewpoint of pros and cons, because there's going to be a pretty strong public debate over this.
Yeah, and just as a comment to that, and I think that's why it's so important that all of that information gets, because this is the committee that's going to make the decision. Yes. Well, ultimately, we'll make the recommendation to council, and council will decide on the future. So I think that's, and that's the issue, I think, always around committees. I mean, these are people that are accountable to the electorate, so we should be the ones getting the information and making the decisions. In any case, go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to commend our Director of Public Works, Stu Doyle, for keeping the wheels in motion for sixth concession to residents concerning the water situation and lack of water that several of those residents are experiencing in that particular area of town. And I guess the question I had was pertaining to our Director of Public Works report, Stu, through Mr. Mayor to Stu. I'm just wondering, Stu, I understand you'll be issuing a survey pending the results of this meeting tonight, just to talk about the interest in the residents up there, being hooked up to town water for a certain fee. And it's not a low fee, and it is a big capital project, and it won't be cheap. And my question is, at what point in time would that survey be circulated, and what point do you hope to hear back from those residents in that area in terms of what their wishes might be, and when we might expect a full report back to council?
Certainly, I'd like to have the letter within the next month. I don't think it'd be a rush to get any answers back. Certainly, give folks enough time to think about it and look at the different options, come in and discuss that with myself or council they wish to talk to. So the money's not in the 2015 capital budget, so we have this year to plan, to go through the process and allow people the time that they need to make decisions.
I think I had a question on the same report, and it was with regard to the statement at the end. I mean, I have been the one who's been making the suggestion over and over again that we consider just installing the water main, and staff doesn't recommend that. But I don't think it's prudent long-term planning part, but the statement that the cost to individual residents is almost identical, I don't quite get, because isn't it $11,000 more expensive if you install sewer than if you just install water?
Yes. The option, what I was referring to, though, is the cost of water to the property is not much different if we put the sewer and water up, tear the road up, do the full construction, or just put a water main up the side of the road. The cost to get the water main to the property line is essentially the same. Direction, the different types of construction methods that we do.
Mr. Mayor, but if we offered just water, it would only cost $18,000 per property.
Correct.
So again, I would just reiterate that I appreciate the long-term planning component, but I think that, as I have said before, there's a critical need on sixth concession for this water. We've heard it over and over again for many years, and I don't know at what point you make the call. Maybe you go ahead and survey water and sewer and you see what the response is, but I think council and staff should, at least in the back of our minds, remain open-minded about the potential that we could offer them the $18,000 rather than the $29,000 solution. And because that $11,000 could mean the difference between a yes and no for quite a few people along that stretch of road, and they have a critical need there. So I just wanted to put that back in the hopper. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Richard, do you want to comment?
Sorry. Yeah. Just one quick comment. The values put in this report are obviously approximate and very preliminary. So I don't want to get hung up on the 18 and 10. I tried to hit a mark there that we could talk about, but that will obviously change as we go through the process.
Councillor Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I have a couple questions about a couple of them.
We've got 5 minutes to start council, or we're going to need a motion to go on. So.
Okay. The CIP plan for Port Elgin that's here, there's some next steps indicated there. I just wanted to make the comment that the report that's here, it's lots of great stuff. We haven't had a great pickup rate from people applying to take advantage of these. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think we really talked about a budget number to have some funds available. But it's not at the moment on the April Planning Advisory Committee agenda. So it says that there's supposed to be a public meeting, so that's advice to Bart maybe to make sure that that happens. But I also would encourage us to perhaps take advantage of the opportunity to make it a joint kind of thing with both Southampton and Port Elgin CIPs to have some education and enthusiasm, because again, we haven't had much of a pickup rate. So that's really just a comment there. The sign bylaw stuff is very big, so I know it's going to come back. And certainly I can leave my thoughts on that for a while. I did want to ask, though, items 6 and 7 for Stuart specifically. You've got a comment in there about Market and Godrich Street, and it's really about lane markings. I'm curious to know when do you imagine that you'll be beginning the lane marking situation this year? Because, of course, slapping paint on the asphalt is needed in a couple parts of town. So do you have a sense of when that might start? Do you have to wait for a certain temperature or something?
Yep, obviously the pavement has to be. We generally don't have that issue, though. By the time our contractor gets to town, it's usually quite warm. So we're trying to speed the process up if that's where we're getting at. But we did make contact with them last week, and we're hoping they'll be a little earlier this year.
Because there's a few places where they're definitely needed. And then with item number 7 about the request that went out related to waste collection services, I realize you gave us a very limited report here. Is there some way we can have access to seeing some of that documentation that was received?
Thank you. I actually have quite a few questions about the sign bylaw. Obviously, we're not going to have time for them. Should I write them down?
This is here just for information. This will come back to council and we'll have all kinds of time to discuss it. So I don't think that we have to make any, this isn't a decision point tonight. If you've got any particular input that you would like staff to include in it, by all means get a hold of staff and let them know that, but we'll have lots of time to discuss it in the future.
And likewise the website.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. I think, did you?
You know what, I'll do the same. I'll get a hold of staff.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions or comments? Then I guess we need I think we'll waive go to council again tonight because we need to start council at 10 o'clock by our procedural bylaw. So a motion to adjourn. And if you want to do a motion to start it at 10 minutes included in that, okay? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Mayette, all in favor? It's carried.